Welcome to Season 3 of Sailing Sitka. I'm Kenna and this is Jay. We live aboard our 1976 Choi Lee sailboat named Sitka, in which we have sailed south from Canada in 2022 to the very last port of Mexico. This season, we are finally exiting Mexico and taking our boat further through the Panama Canal and into the beautiful Central American waters. So hit that subscribe button and follow along, as this season we are sailing as far and wide as possible. You guys you make this happen, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Sailing Sitka, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to our Panama Canal transit episode.
It's Canal Day.
The one everyone has been waiting for. In this video, we transit from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic, or at least we try to. Sitka decided she had other plans for us, and just like that, an ordinary day turned into a nightmare within seconds. Our engine just stopped turning over, like randomly. This is the third time now it just stopped. This is our attempt of transiting the Panama Canal without a reliable engine. Rigged up, and we're just on standby with Bully over there and Finn over there, just waiting for our advisors to come on. It is 4 a.m. and it's Canal Day, baby.
Hi guys. Well, yeah, it's D-Day right now, so yeah, always a little nervous, you know, when you do things like this, especially when you're kind of dependent on a bunch of people, other boats, and yourself to like all perform as one. It's always a little nerve-wracking, but yeah, I'm sure everything's gonna go well. The advantage of our transit today is that all three boats were all through the same company for agents, meaning we all have the same company line handlers, so they've all worked together before, so they all know what they're doing. And that, I think, is going to be key. I think good communication is also going to be key. I know it's going to be a long day. Hopefully the weather stays the way it is right now. It's pretty nice. And yeah, hopefully it all goes well. But yeah, it's always a bit nerve-wracking for sure.
Famous last words, of course. Seconds after, we heard a sound that still haunts us to this day. I'm talking about the low rumble of our engine coming to a complete stop, and then a lingering silence afterwards. Our first engine failure of the day happened at 4:30 a.m., while we were drifting beside the shipping lanes in neutral, awaiting for our advisor to board. At this point, we had no idea what could have caused the sudden stop of our Yanmar 56. And when Jay went down below to do an engine check, he didn't see anything initially wrong. This was a first for Sitka, and never once have we experienced an engine failure such as this one in all of the 8 years of Jay owning this boat. The only time it quit before this was the time we left Eureka, California in 2022. It was during sea state mental, which churned up sediments in the bottom of our fuel tank and clogged our primary Raycor filter, but luckily on board Sitka we have a dual Raycor setup, so all we had to do was switch from the primary filter to the other and we were back in business. So naturally Jay did the same thing this time around too, in hopes that that would solve our problem.
Not sure what that was, but I mean, it is really rare that we spend like.
Tell them what happened.
So funny.
Oh my god.
So the engine on Sitka has been bulletproof. Like, I mean, like we all know this, like bulletproof forever. And we're just waiting in spot now. I guess we were in neutral for about 40 minutes, and then the engine just shut off, like by itself.
Literally.
And I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, this is not the fucking time. Because like if the engine doesn't work in Canada crossing, you pay a huge fine, and then you have to do it again. And I'm like, no, can't be going on. Then went down below, like restarted right away, and then gave it some gas, and it was fine, and it died again. Went down below, nothing seems to be wrong. Exhaust coming out, everything is good. And yeah, just switched from primary filter to the other one. Maybe there's a bit of a clog in there, I don't know. We were idling at low, so I just switched it to the other brand new one. We have a dual one. The other one's brand new too. I changed it literally like in Golfito. And then the new filter on the engine is just changed here, and then we motored like another hour since then. We motored an hour here yesterday too. So yeah, no, I don't know, not sure. But
all that reminded me of is when Becca and Zach on Kalu told us when they were about to do the canal, their engine just like messed up the night or the morning of. And so I don't know if you guys gave us your freaking juju, but what
we
the
don't want
heck?
it.
We don't want it. Take it back, you guys. What the heck? We were cracking jokes and not overly stressed until it decided to die again, even after Jay switched the filters. In this moment, the severity of the situation dawned upon us. Now this was no longer something we thought we could fix or knew what the problem could have potentially been. Now our engine is officially unreliable on the day where we need it the most, and we don't know how long we have to figure something out before our advisor boards the boat. Keep in mind, the advisor is now at this point late on his arrival, and we have no idea when he's coming, so we have to act fast. So at this point, since it's died time and time again, Jay went down below and switched the filter back to the original one, as it was this point he believed that was no longer the issue. He then proceeded to bleed the engine. For those of you who do not know what bleeding means, it means removing the air that has found its way in the fuel system of a diesel engine.
Oh, just to on?
A diesel engine with air in the fuel will not run. Luckily, on our Yanmar diesel engine, this is quite easy to do. All we need to do is loosen a hose clamp on the fuel return line while someone engages the fuel pump from the engine panel in the cockpit. Jay watches the mixture of air and fuel escape, and once no bubbles are sighted and only a solid stream of diesel is seen, he retightens the hose clamp. We then attempt to fire up the diesel once again.
I think we got it.
It's on, it's on.
There's a book.
Is the through hole open?
You can't make this shit up.
Is the through hole open?
Yeah, there's a blockage like...
Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Hola. How are you doing?
That was probably the most stressful thing that's ever happened on Sitka, just because timings were like insane and like that's never happened before. So the fuel pickup like from the tank was clogged, so I took, normally when you have the fuel pump on and you take out this one hose after the fuel filter that's on the engine, you should see a stream of fuel and bubbles coming out if you're bleeding it, and then straight stream of fuel, and I was seeing nothing. So I'm like, okay, there's a clog before the pump. So I'm like, okay, what can it be? Okay, it's not the fuel filters because they're like brand new, both of them. At this point I knew it wasn't that, and then I'm like, okay, it can only be the pickup from the tank. So I took the hose off the tank, and then we literally used a new foot pump that we bought for the paddle board for Kenna, and then I got Nick to pump on it while I held the tube in there, and then we put that back on. Then I had Kenna turn the fuel pump for a bit, and then a stream came, and I'm like, okay, and that's as the advisor stepping on board. You can't make this shit up. And then it started. I'm getting 45 more gray hairs out of this. It's gonna be a funny story one day, but it wasn't funny today.
It's still not funny. I would love to tell you all that that was the end of the unnecessary excitement of the day, but that's just not the case. It was actually, sadly, just the beginning. But now we're moving, and seconds ago, we didn't even think that would be possible. So now, it's Jay and I, with our crew Nick, 2 local hired line handlers, and our advisor, aboard a boat with an unreliable engine, headed directly towards the locks of the Panama Canal. Let's see how far we can make it before our next engine failure happens again. I'll let you in on a little secret now. We didn't make it that far.
just happened again, like in the middle of this. This is not ideal. But now I know how to get it sorted real quick, but it's still not ideal. 8 years owning this boat, it's never happened. We just motored 500 hours to get here. All the way from Mexico, no issues. The day we do the freaking canal. Can't make this shit up.
I took a moment to look up at my surroundings once the engine got going again. We were officially at the beginning of the Panama Canal on the Pacific side, awaiting our timing to transit. It was hard to not notice that we were ants amongst giants, ants with sometimes no legs to move forward. This experience in itself is stressful, but adding a finicky and untrustworthy engine was a whole other level of emotional strain. All I wanted in that moment was to make it to the locks and be tied up with our buddy boats, Bully and Finn, so that we could feel a sense of calmness knowing that if it were to fail again, at least we would be against the hull of a boat with a properly working engine. All of a sudden, my wish came true within minutes and it was go time. We were officially transiting the Panama Canal on our boat, Sitka. Good morning! As you approach the entrance to the canal, the towering gates and massive machinery create an impressive contrast to the small size of your vessel. The sheer scale of the operation is humbling, as you realize the complexity of this artificial waterway that connects two vast oceans. Once inside, the gates close behind you and the water begins to rise slowly, lifting your boat toward the level of the Gatun Lake. That's gonna come off, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good.
The sensation is almost surreal, as if you're being gently elevated into a new world, surrounded by the walls of the lock and the sound of the water flowing in from the surrounding canals. The journey through the locks is a unique blend of patience and awe, as you watch the water levels rise and your boat slowly ascends, inching closer to the tranquil lake that forms the heart of the canal. The experience offers a rare first-hand glimpse of the incredible engineering that makes the Panama Canal one of the most significant maritime marvels in history.
And you know that GoPro's still running, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Saw that coming.
yeah.
Sitka's sad.
It's not doing too well.
There's so much torsion.
Just like that, somehow, some way, we made it to the third and final lock on the Pacific side before transiting into the river towards the lake and on to the next set of locks before the Atlantic Ocean. All right, we are through the first set of locks. We just disconnected from our buddies over there and now we're off. We're going through the river into the lake and hopefully we're gonna make it on time, but we're not too sure.
Yeah, we're touching all the wood too. Like the engine now has been on for over 4 hours. Let's hope it stays that way. Yeah, that's all I have to say for now.
So they do their last lock at 3 p.m. It is 11:15, so we need to do 6.2 knots sustained to get there for 3 p.m. to make that last lock. If not, we will be mooring up in the lake and spending the night and then continuing to the last set of locks tomorrow morning. So same process as today, so we'll see. Hopefully Sitka can get this there super fast, that'd be great, but if not, that's the way she goes.
No. Fuck me.
No way, it just happened. The weight of the situation presses down on me, each second feeling like an eternity. My heart races and a tight knot forms in my chest, making it hard to breathe. We were engineless, coming out of the locks, and in the way of a gigantic cargo ship gaining speed behind us, unaware of its need to slow down. My thoughts scatter, unable to focus, as every possibility of failure flashes before my eyes. The advisor begins to inform me that I have to move, but I can't. Physically, mentally, emotionally stuck, both me and our vessel. Each breath feels shallow, and my hands tremble as I try to keep my composure, but inside, I'm consumed by a whirlwind of panic, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of what's at stake.
All right, guys. Yeah, that was very, very stressful. So obviously, as you can tell, like, Kenna shut the camera off, and that's because like it was like such a high stress event that like filming was the last of our concern at this point. As you can tell, we had just exited the third lock on the Pacific side, and we had a cargo ship gaining speed just after us, coming right for us. So once our advisor, who was now sitting at the bow, noticed that our engine died again, he made his way to the cockpit and then was starting to basically tell Kenna, like, hey, you got to start getting out of the way of the cargo ship. But obviously a ship or a boat that has no propulsion, so either sails, in this case we're not allowed to use sails in the Panama Canal, or an engine, which at this point is not working, you no longer have forward momentum, therefore you have no rudder steerage. Like a boat that has no momentum forward or aft will have no steerage whatsoever. So even though he was literally yelling at Kenna to get over to starboard after a while, and she was like trying to explain to him, like, listen, like, we can't do anything about it. So at this point, I'm down below trying to get the engine going again by bleeding the lines again, and at this point the advisor's calling for a tow. So he's frantic on the radio, like he's stressed too, because like the cargo ship's right behind us, and I mean they can't stop on a dime. Like cargo ships take minutes to stop, sometimes like 20 minutes to stop, and there's no stopping it at this point. So he's frantically calling on VHF for a towboat, which luckily we're right there on a dock. But the thing is, if these boats button on to us, like tie us up and tow us, we get fined thousands and thousands of USD dollars, which we absolutely do not want. So I'm down below working as fast and as efficiently as I can to get the engine going again, and I'm stressed out. Like at this point we're already burnt out. Like we've been going through this since 3 in the morning and having to deal with it. And at this point I'm starting to think that having the engine full throttle is allowing more air to get in the system, and that's what airlocking it, because at that point it had ran for 4 hours in neutral at low RPM. So I'm like, we finally, by a miracle of God, get it going right, and you can't make this stuff up, right before the towboat was about to tie up. Like the towboat, like they were literally maybe, I don't know, 15 feet from us from tying up, and I looked at the advisor and I'm like, don't let them tie up, like we're good. And he's like, are you sure? How confident are you that we're gonna make it across? I'm like, listen, I'm 100% confident, and I wasn't that we were gonna make it through, but I was maybe like 30% confident that we're actually gonna make it through. But I'm like, do not tie up, like we can't afford for you to tie up. So anyways, they just like, he looked at me again and asked me again, and the towboat wanted to tie up because I think they get probably a kickback from tie. I'm not sure, but they really wanted to come and tie up, and I'm like, no. And then so he told them on VHF to go away, and they were so close, we were just telling them to go away, and we kept going. But then I looked at the advisor, I'm like, listen, like the reason, like there's no way we're maintaining 6 knots, like we can't. So he's like, okay, that's fine, like just go at a speed that you think we're gonna be good. So I lowered the RPM, and I'm like, we're not touching the RPM. I can't remember, because this is, I'm speaking to you right now live, a week before you're seeing this episode. But I think we lowered it to like 16 or 1700 RPM, and I didn't touch it. Whatever we put it on, that was it. And then we had like 25 miles, 30 miles to go, and then it started raining, and the entire time I'm just like beyond stressed. And like our agent Eric is messaging us on WhatsApp, and he's like, hey, I'm hearing you're having like engine issues and all that stuff. And we're like, yeah, at this point, like we think we have it under control, but we're not sure. Like the entire time we were like just at it, and we were beyond exhausted. Like once that event stopped, And we're finally underway after like Kenna's getting yelled at by the advisor to turn and all that stuff, and things calm down. Like Kenna was like almost in a full-blown panic attack. Like I had to like pet her and calm her down while I was steering, just to get, you know, everybody back down to like, you know, a even keel level, because like everybody was like such at a heightened state of adrenaline that like, and now the adrenaline had started coming down and it was very stressful. So yeah, and then we knew at this point that we were no longer going to be able to transit the last 3 locks on the Atlantic side that day. We knew that we were going to have to take a mooring up for the night and spend the night and tied up with Bully at some, like in the same area, and then the next day we're going to transit the rest of the locks. But come to find out, it wasn't the end of our problems.
Jay was right. We hadn't seen the last of it. But for the next 6 hours, Sitka held strong for us. We found her sweet spot and didn't adjust her RPM in the slightest for the entire duration of our transit down the river and into the lake. Luckily, our advisor chilled out and had some sympathy for our situation, because at the end of the day, like we explained to him, this was so beyond out of our control that there wasn't much we could do about it. So his patience for the next slow and wet 6 hours were very much appreciated. Just taking a moment to myself to breathe and control my emotions. The canal I thought was going to be stressful enough, and then you add engine failure onto that. Like, she's failed 4 times now, and luckily Jay's got her up and running every single time, and I love him for that. He's such a quick thinker on his feet. But like, it's not a good time when your engine fails and you're in between cargo ships in a tiny transit canal. Like, it's just the literally worst case scenario you could think of. Anyway, we're about halfway now, a little over. She's been running really good, and yeah, we're gonna be definitely catching a mooring because we're not pushing this boat any more than 4.7 knots, between 4.7 and 5. So yeah, looks like we'll be sleeping in the lake tonight on a mooring, and then we'll continue this tomorrow. Oh my God. Again, somehow and some way we made it. This time to the mooring in Gatun Lake, one of which we shared with SV Bully, who was also too slow to make it through all in one day, unlike our fast friends on Finn, considering they're a cat. We were directed by our advisor that we needed to share the same mooring with Bully, even though we informed him it wouldn't be the best idea having 2 heavy vessels playing yo-yo against our lines for hours to come, but we had no other say. So this is where we stayed the night, licking our wounds and reminiscing about the day we just had, and on how we managed to make it this far. Like Jay said, one day this will be a funny story. It's just not any day soon. If you've made it this far into this week's episode, comment down below engine failure so we can thank you personally for sticking around for so long. I wish I could tell you tomorrow was a new day with new beginnings, but somehow the bad luck carried through until morning and we were still living through this nightmare. More on part 2 of our canal transit next week. We hope to see you there. Okay, we need to get on our own mooring ball here. Our whole front piece of our tow rail just ripped off. Oh my God. Oh, my heart's in my freaking throat. We went to go start the engine and move, and it didn't start again.
It's gonna be a miracle if we actually make it. It started and died.
Just can't catch a break, can we? Thank you for watching this week's episode of Sailing Sitka. Stick around for more to come. If you enjoyed, please spread the love and let us know. Special thank you to our Patreon members for making these videos possible, as well as helping our dreams come true. See you all next week.